as an LGBT equality symbol. Gilbert Baker in 1978 at San Francisco Pride borrowed it from the hippie movement. So you all know what that rainbow flag looks like. So it's actually 40 years ago, this year, that rainbow flag was used in a pride parade. It's a symbol that's so joyous, it speaks of divine power, grace, and hope, and it's a biblical symbol. That same rainbow that Noah and the Ark survivors saw is the same rainbow that we claim today. I remember marching in Jamaica for the first March on Tolerance about 6 years ago. 110 people, not a big number of people, marched through the streets of Montego Bay in Jamaica for pride, for tolerance toward all people. And what was so amazing was, longer than the parade itself was this huge, enormous rainbow flag that was carried. And I thought about how much that rainbow flag gave us courage. The 5 clergy people marching in that parade, all from MCC, and the 105 Jamaicans who were all marching. It sort of connected us to a worldwide movement. We felt bold. And there was no violence at all that day. Our gospel reading today also includes the shortest account of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. It's only 2 sentences, jam-packed together, that the Spirit of God, the same Spirit that hovered over Jesus with the dove at his baptism, that same Spirit drove him into the wilderness, a desert place, harsh, where he would fast and pray and struggle for 40 days and nights, like all the prophets, Moses and Elijah. This wilderness experience was part of Jesus' training. It was his credentials as a real prophet, a leader with something to say. All prophets had to suffer in their own wilderness and be tested to know if they had the courage to serve God in this way. Both these stories, Noah and Jesus' temptation, tell us something about hope. First of all, hope is a verb. It's not passive. It's not about sitting around and just wishing things might be different. Imagine that moment that Noah opened the ark after 40 days and 40 nights, after being cooped up all that time, you know? It rained and rained for 40 daisy daisy, rained and rained for 40 daisy daisy, drove those animals nearly crazy crazy. Children of the Lord, amen. So after 40 days and 40 nights, Noah opens the ark. All he can see are floodwaters. But Noah had hope. He had hope that the floods would recede, that life would go back to some semblance of normalcy. And so he becomes active. He sends a raven, and then he sends a dove several times. He doesn't give up, even though he still can't see the tops of trees or mountains yet. He has hope, and he takes action until hope is confirmed. Those young LGBT people at Stonewall 9 years ago felt something stir within them, a revolutionary energy, a sense of community under fire, a brief belief that somewhere over the rainbow there was a better life for people like you and me and all of us. That same hope that people in Jamaica and Uganda and China and Cuba now have for themselves. The students who walked out of school this week in Broward County and elsewhere, who are planning to march in March 14th of this year, are not just angry for themselves and their teachers, but really they are also filled with hope, the hope of the young, that their actions can actually make a difference. Hope that the stalemate that we've had for decades, that the ways in which we have said, gosh, you're in our thoughts and prayers, but we feel like we can't take any action. Hope that people who are politicians, whatever their party, will wake up and care more about the children than about their donors. hope that this can become a movement for change. You know, only in the U.S., among developed countries in the world, can a 19-year-old with mental problems buy an AK-47. You know, it's easier to buy an AK-47 than a handgun in this country. And really, the main reason is that somebody's making a lot of money off the sale of these kinds of weapons, and they have a lobby in Congress. You know, years ago, do you remember lawn darts? A little girl was killed by a lawn dart, and Congress passed a law that said these could no longer be manufactured and sold in this country. One person. Do you know that in the next 2 years, more people will die from gun violence in this country than all of our soldiers in the Vietnam War? That is the truth. In Australia, which is a pretty macho country, if you know Australia, they believe in, hunting and, all of that, and they have guns in their country. But they had one mass shooting, I think it was about a decade or so ago. They passed common sense laws, and there has not been a mass shooting since in Australia. So we think about these things and we say, when 95% of people in our country want to see some changes, even if we disagree on the kinds of changes that need to be made, it's time to act. We cannot give up hope. We need to hope with our voices, our votes, our actions. Secondly, hope is not only active, but it drives us into our own wilderness places to seek connection to God. There's a tradition in our Christian tradition of people getting away from routines, people going into the desert, away from human beings, to a wild place to find a connection with God. Jesus was driven to find space to really hear God before he engaged in his public ministry. Lent is a spiritual space for us to find hope, to reconnect with God, to hear God calling us. In Mark's gospel, it says Jesus was with the wild beasts. And as you read it, it really doesn't sound threatening. But Jesus came apart from human life a while, maybe to be with his own wild thoughts, his own doubts and fears. He came close to the edge of life and death. Jesus was in his own ark for 40 days and 40 nights. And Mark doesn't tell us how Jesus was tempted. I wonder if he wanted to walk away from his own calling at some point. I wondered if he thought about using the power that God was giving him for his own gain. I wonder if he thought about becoming a celebrity without really taking the risks to heal people, to change the world, to challenge authorities, to have fame without sacrifice. Or did Jesus just think, I want to do good, but God, I just want to have a normal, simple life? He was with the wild beasts, it says. But it also says the angels waited on him, ministered to him. I've had experience, I believe, with angels in my life. And for me, the way this happens is that a complete stranger I'll meet or have an encounter with, and at some point along that encounter, they bring me a message that I know is a divine message. And it'll always make me laugh or smile a little bit, because usually the stranger is just a little bit odd, a little bit off. So one day I was getting on a plane, going somewhere, as I did for many, many years for MCC all the time. I don't remember where I was going, but it was kind of a difficult time or a difficult day for me. And this is also when it often happens. So I get on the plane, and there's a little guy sitting next to the window. And as I go to sit down, he says, I need to use the bathroom, ma'am. And I said, okay. So I let him out of my seat, and he starts running to the back, and the stewardess says, sir, come back, you can't use the bathroom. And I did something I never do on a plane. I said to the stewardess, please just let him use the bathroom. Like that. And I thought, I don't know why I did that. And she just backed off, and he went to the bathroom, came back, and he said, oh, I thank God, he said, for seating me next to a nice lady like you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And So then he started talking, and I knew it was going to be one of those plane rides where I didn't get any reading done, and I didn't get any work done or any rest, you know. I listened to him as he told me that his wife had just died, and that she was someone who'd had a lot of challenges in her life. And his family didn't particularly like her, but his sister had sent him a plane ticket and told him he had to come home and visit the family, and he was kind of dreading it. And this kind of went on and on for quite some time as he kind of poured out his heart to this nice lady that had gotten up and let him go to the bathroom when it all started. But at some point, he just turned to me and looked right at me and said, "But brighter days are coming." And he said it with a kind of authority and twinkle in his eye that, you know, from the top of my head to the tip of my toes, I had that reaction. And I thought, oh, God, you've sent me a funny little angel on the plane today. And so for the rest of the time, our brighter days are coming, he said. And that was how we said goodbye to each other and embraced as we got off the plane. I thought about that. Brighter days are coming. My troubles were lifted. I wonder if Jesus' angels, one of them said to him, "Jesus, brighter days are coming." Sometimes we just need to know that our troubles will not last always. Our challenges, our temptations, our struggles will not last. But love lasts. God lasts. Hope lasts. Brighter days are coming. Tap your neighbor on the shoulder and say, brighter days are coming. Amen. Today, right here and right now at SunCoast, we must be signs of hope that brighter days are coming. People here and all over the world are seeking authentic, positive faith that has an impact for good, that doesn't insult their intelligence or cause harm, that inspires people to do greater things for God. When people drive by here in the weeks leading up to Easter, I want to pray that they'll enter a zone of hope and inspiration. When people encounter us, do we have a message for them? That brighter days are coming. Live in hope. Let us give up our despair this Lent, our mean thoughts, our resentments, nursing our hurts. Let's give them up. Let's give up our disappointments and fears, our negativity, or our wounds. Instead, in the midst of all that the world has thrown at us this week, or that we may be facing in our own lives, we, followers of Jesus, must lift high the rainbow banner that says, brighter days are coming, people of God. God is with us. God has not forsaken us. Let's turn to God, SunCoast, with all our hearts in this season and see what God will do. Amen. Amen. And